Jealousy is a sign of love. How many times have you heard that? And how many times did you believe it? Until you realized that what was love made you lose sleep, peace, and even who you were. What nobody told you is that jealousy, in fact, is almost never about the other person, and almost always has everything to do with you. More specifically, with the wounds you carry and have learned to ignore. It's born out of insecurity, grows out of emotional anxiety, and feeds on your low self-esteem. But what if I told you that the problem isn't feeling jealous? The problem is not knowing what to do with it. You don't need to feel guilty about it anymore, but you do need to stop hurting yourself by trying to hide it, suffocate it, or control it. There is a lighter, more mature, more conscious path. AE, path where you learn to identify triggers, develop self-control, communicate clearly, and turn jealousy into self-knowledge. And that's exactly what you'll discover here. She feels her chest tighten when she sees her partner laughing on his cell phone. The first reaction is to blame jealousy. But what lies behind this is much deeper. Jealousy is actually just the alarm of something that is wounded inside. Self-esteem, self-confidence, a sense of self-worth. It screams when insecurity creeps in, when comparisons with other women take over, when the fear of rejection speaks louder than rational thought. Jealousy is not malice, it's pain asking for attention. It's common to think that being jealous is immature. But is it really? Look, often the woman who feels jealous doesn't want to control the other person. She just wants to feel safe. And this security doesn't come from outside. It comes from self-knowledge. It comes when she stops depending on her partner's validation to feel loved. So the exercise here is simple and powerful. Every time jealousy arises, she can ask herself, what exactly am I afraid of losing? His love, or my own identity? By asking this question, she begins to remove the blindfold. Because, most of the time, what hurts isn't what the other person does. It's what she believes it says about herself. If he looks at someone else, she feels she's not enough. If he doesn't text her, she concludes that she's not a priority. The problem isn't jealousy itself. The problem is when it becomes the center of the relationship. But the truth that nobody told you is that jealousy can be an invitation to grow, and not a reason to sink. She tries everything. She asks where he is, who liked his photo, who he's going out with. But no matter how much she controls it, the fear won't go away. Because what gives her emotional anxiety isn't the other person's freedom. It's her internal prison. Emotional control begins when she understands that watching the other person doesn't bring peace. What brings peace is developing self-control over reactions, over the racing mind, over the need to have guarantees. She thinks that to control is to love, but in practice it is to suffocate. In many cases, this woman has grown up believing that if she is always attentive and in charge, abandonment won't happen. But what she doesn't realize is that control is a false remedy. It relieves for 5 minutes, but then the anguish returns. So, the next time insecurity strikes, she can change the question, what is he doing, to what is this situation arousing in me? This exercise of accepting herself changes everything. Because when she stops wasting energy trying to guess, watch, or dominate the other person, there's room to look at herself. And that's when the building of emotional maturity begins. She realizes that she can feel safe, even when the world outside seems unstable. And it is precisely on this journey of trust and self-acceptance that many discover a new way of relating, lighter, freer, healthier. She looks at her cell phone. She sees that he's seen it and hasn't replied. That's it. Her mind goes into overdrive. He's tired of me. He's got someone else. I'm not a priority. In seconds, she's already written an entire script based on the silence of a notification. That's the power of emotional anxiety. It distorts reality and knocks self-esteem to the ground. Jealousy, in this case, isn't even provoked by the other person. It's fueled by the mind itself. which never stops creating assumptions. Often she doesn't even realize that she's being guided by old triggers, a disappearance that reminds her of her absent father, a vacuum that reactivates the fear of abandonment. And, without realizing it, she acts towards her partner as she did towards the person who hurt her in the past. That's why a fundamental step is to question your own thoughts before reacting. A good exercise? Write down what you're thinking and ask yourself, is this a fact or just a story my anxiety is telling me? This pause between impulse and reaction can save relationships. Because most fights, jealous outbursts, exaggerated demands are born out of misinterpretations. When she learns to develop self-knowledge and rational thinking, she can separate what is real from what is projection. And little by little, confidence grows, insecurity diminishes, and emotional attachment stops being a burden and becomes a conscious choice. Feeling jealous isn't the problem. The problem is when she swallows it for days and then explodes, or even worse, silences it and starts punishing the other person coldly. This kind of behavior is the result of a lack of emotional control and immature communication. When she doesn't allow herself to express what she feels, the pain becomes poison. And then, what could just be a nuisance becomes a cycle of guilt, tension, and estrangement. The secret is not to hide your feelings. It's learning to say calmly, "Look, this has made me insecure. I don't know if it's all in my head, but I wanted to tell you how I felt." That's emotional maturity. It's using jealousy as a bridge, not a wall. Speech comes from vulnerability, not accusation, and that's where the relationship matures. Because she doesn't demand that the other person guess, she chooses to show herself. Communicating your feelings clearly and respectfully is an act of courage. More than that, it's a step towards self-care. She stops waiting for the other person to resolve her emotional anxiety and begins to welcome what is alive inside her. This changes everything. Because little by little, she understands that jealousy doesn't have to be an enemy when it's treated with empathy and truth. And perhaps, by looking at it more gently, she'll realize that behind the jealousy, there is still a need for healing. Sometimes she thinks the problem lies in the other person's behavior. But if you take a moment to look, you'll realize that what hurts the most is the echo of something old that has nothing to do with the person you're with today. Emotional attachment, emotional dependence, the constant fear of being replaced or forgotten. All this is less about the present and more about unresolved stories from the past. It's not about him liking a photo. It's about the abandonment from years ago that still hasn't been looked at. Every time she tries to control it, keep an eye on it, limit it, deep down, it's just a desperate attempt to avoid feeling it again. That old wound of rejection, of not feeling enough, of being left behind. But control doesn't bring peace. What does is healing. And healing requires courage. It's looking inwards, even when it hurts, and asking yourself, what am I trying to avoid feeling? That's the kind of question that transforms life. It can start slowly, with a therapeutic conversation, honest writing, or even a simple, "What am I feeling right now?" Self-knowledge is not a destination, it's a path. And every step she takes towards herself strengthens her self-esteem, her self-acceptance, her confidence. And over time, jealousy stops being a monster and becomes just a sign. Signs that something inside still needs to be held, not controlled. Now that you've understood what's behind jealousy, tell me, how long will you keep trying to control the other person? Instead of healing yourself from the inside? How much longer are you going to punish yourself for feeling it, when what you really need is to welcome it? The truth is that nobody taught you how to deal with your emotions. But now that you know, you have the chance to do something different, for you. So how about starting by observing your reactions with more emotional maturity? Notice the moments when emotional anxiety appears. Question automatic thoughts, and Speak clearly. No outbursts, no forced silence, no games. Jealousy is not a sign of weakness. It's an invitation to self-knowledge. And those who accept this invitation grow. If this content has helped you in any way, subscribe to the channel and activate the notifications to continue on this journey of building healthy relationships with more self-control and self-esteem. And tell me in the comments, what impacted you the most here? Let's grow together.